Right then, okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. Today, we're going to be looking at the very important topic of making tax digital. So for those who aren't too sure, Making Tax Digital is the new government scheme designed to make tax administration more effective, efficient and easier for taxpayers to get right. So essentially, all VAT registered businesses above a certain turnover will now be required to submit their VAT returns using their business software. So we're going to take a look at that today. As you might know, my name is Adam and I'm part of the 4PS account management team. And I'm joined here this morning by Pauline, who is our resident NAV expert on all things finance. Many of you will know Pauline from our previous webinars and some other training sessions. So I'll hand you over to her in just a sec to run through this morning's agenda. But before we get into it, I just want to go through our usual bit of housekeeping. So as normal, we ask that you forward any questions onto me directly once the webinar is over. I appreciate there might be a few coming out of this, so I'll put my contact details up on the screen at the end of the presentation. So feel free to give me a call or drop me an email and I'll be more than happy to help you out. We just find this way it helps us keep on track and save a bit of time. Just to let you know, we are also recording this webinar, so if you don't quite catch something, it will be up online on the website very soon for you to rewatch and share around the business. And all in all, we're looking for today's webinar to last around half an hour, 45 minutes. Cool. All right then, so if you're ready, Pauline.
I am indeed.
It's over to you.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody. And thank you, Adam, as we are covering our Making Tax Digital session today. Just run through the highlights of what we'll be achieving, hopefully. First of all, I just want to mention we will be, if we haven't already, be releasing a standard .fob file for you, which will contain all the relevant objects, pages, etc. That are required for Making Tax Digital. You should have already received, or you will do very shortly, a separate link which will be for you to download the latest Navision license for your database. This license gives you the access to all the new objects, pages, code units, etc. that are held within the FOB. Also, part of that release that we'll be making to you, there's going to be, as well as the instructions, I have to say, for you to follow exactly what we're doing today, in actual fact. But we will be offering a what's called a rapid start package. I will explain what that's going to do. I'm not actually going to run through that process today, but in essence, it will auto-populate some default settings on the various new pages. And again, I'll highlight those to you, and I think you'll probably find that quite useful. So that's the release itself, and that will be coming to you shortly. What else has changed? Well, on the VAT statement itself, there is a new field called a box number, and this actually is relevant to the HMRC box number fields that you upload when you're doing your submissions. That's really all that happens on your existing statement, although there are some changes in terms of how we have to print the fields. And again, I'll explain that to you when we look at that statement. New pages that we have, there's something called Service Connection. So this is your link, if you like, via Microsoft to HMRC. So in this instance, Microsoft is actually acting as the agent, and through the agent you can access HMRC to upload or submit your VAT return. So we'll have a look at the setup on that and actually run through that setup for you. There's something else called a VAT report setup, and again we'll have a look at what that is going to give us, and also something called VAT report configurations. As usual with NAV, once you've got your setup done, you don't normally have to go back to those pages, but I just want to make you aware of what they are and what information they contain. And last but not least is something called the VAT return periods page, and it is actually from here that you will create your VAT return and then submit online to HMRC. So what is the actual process now? Well, has it changed at all? Not really, apart from the submission side of things. So you will still be doing your VAT statement as you have always done in the past. You will do your calc and post report, and again you'll be comparing them, as you do at the moment, to your VAT statement, and make sure that the calc and post are reconciling to one another. And again, I'll take you through that today. We'll then actually, after we've done that reconciliation, go to the VAT return periods page and run the return, because it is from, as I said earlier, this page that we will actually submit the online submission. And again, we'll just do a check against our statement that our submission is singing from the same hymn sheet. And then last but not least, we'll actually go to the return and submit it online. Now, of course, I'm saying we're going to be able to take you through this. We are going to be in a test environment, so it won't be live data, obviously, because HMRC are never that helpful to us. But we do have a development environment which we can actually utilise today for you. So let's go to NAV itself and have a look at the various pages that we've got. Okay, so our first port of call is going to be our VAT statement. I'm using version 2018, but it is the same, roughly the same in all versions, although for the unsupported versions, the screens are likely to be slightly different because, of course, we're dealing with the classic environment. But we'll go to our VAT statement and have a look at what changes we have. So you can see here there's this new column called box number, and that relates, as I mentioned earlier, to the box numbers on what used to be the old green form. I have no idea what colour it is now, some years since I've done it personally, but the box numbers that are related on that form. So these must be populated for us to be able to do that return. Just one other thing that we have to do, because of the nature of Navision and how it views sales and purchases, sales are negative, purchases are positive, etc. We have to, when we're doing our reporting, actually have to set the print with column to be the opposite sign for all those entries that are related to our sales figures, plus the return, the actual line that we're saying is either receivable or payable. The reason being is HMRC is actually not interested in signs. It knows what a sale is, it knows what a purchase is, and therefore the difference between the two is what the result is of your return this period. So just to recap on that, we've got our box number here, which relates to the boxes that we're sending through on our online submission. And we're going to print with the opposite sign for the sales entries and for the total VAT fields as well. Again, all this is explained in the accompanying user notes that will be sent out on the release to you. So next up, we have something called service connections. Just a note, I've just remembered, just when you're loading your objects, and as I say, it is a standard NAV FOB file, the menu suites need to be recompiled. So when you're in your development environment, go to the menu suites, highlight them all, and then just do an F11. Otherwise, you might find some of the fields are not readily available. But if you get stuck, of course, just come through to support. Anyway, here we go then. You'll notice HMRC VAT, and it says at the moment sandbox setup. I'll explain why it does that in 2 ticks. So we go to the setup page itself, and part of this rapid start that I've already mentioned will auto-populate these fields for you. So that saves you having to worry about that. The client ID and client secret, they are actually Microsoft's client ID and their secret or password. Again, as I mentioned earlier, Microsoft is acting as the agent between yourselves and Microsoft to go to HMRC, and therefore we have to actually request authorization, as it's called, which is this little box up here. And you'll notice you have got a message at the top there that says, choose the request authorization code action to complete the authorization process. So that is, you are then saying to HMRC, please, I am giving you permission to talk to HMRC on my behalf. Okay, we'll be running through that process in a moment because I just want to show you the other things first of all. So I'll just close that down. We then have something called our VAT report setup. And if I spelt it correctly, that would help. Okay, you notice there's two there. We'll be coming to the configuration in a moment. And again, if you're using the Rapid Start, part of that Rapid Start will actually create the number series that are going to be used. As you know, everything in Navision always has to have a number series attached. Navision has generated this for you. If you want to use your own number series, create your own, then you're perfectly at liberty to do that. But as I say, that Rapid Start will create it for you. The one main change on this page when you are going live, and of course you may or may not be aware of this, if you do actually connect to HMRC through Microsoft, i.e. you do this authorization, at that point you are saying, I'm going to be doing my online submission from here on in. So please don't go through that process until you're ready to do it, because you can't then go back to manually do your submission. But once you have decided that it's time that you have to do your first submission, and the submission date will be any return, so quarter, monthly return that you do at the moment that takes place after the 1st or the 5th of April. So if your last return is in March, then March, April, May, June, you're not going to be doing your first return until July. Okay, so when you're ready to do that, the only thing that you will do on this page, if you've used the the Rapid Start, is that you will actually be changing that to production if it isn't production at the moment. As I mentioned earlier, we're using this testing development environment so that we can actually show you the process today. So once that has been changed to production, we will then come to the other VAT report page here, which is the VAT reports configuration. And again, it's going to be filled by that Rapid Start. So there's nothing here that we need to amend or change, because this is all these things that are called code units, i.e. the rules that are used within our objects to allow us to be able to do our submission. Last but not least, we have then something called VAT return periods. Oops, T-poly. And on here, the processes as far as HMRC is concerned, you will go to HMRC and you will use this return periods here button. You will go to HMRC, and we'll again cover this during today's session. HMRC will then send back details of your last submission and the next one that is going to be for your good selves. Okay, so HMRC control that for you. So we're going to get the return periods, and then you'll notice this button is greyed out at the moment. We will then create our VAT return itself. As I say, I'm going to take you through all of that. Hopefully HMRC is going to play ball with me. So we'll have a look at how we can do that. So our first port of call, and I've got a little notepad document here that I'm going to be referring to through today's session. The details here and this one are these codes, these HMRC's client reference and client secret. Again, that is held within the document that we'll be sending out to you, so don't worry about trying to scribble it all down now. I do advise that you either have those strings in a notepad or Word document, only because if you pop it into Excel can put some of those spurious characters at the end of the character of the cell, either carriage return or something, and Microsoft or Navision won't like that because it will read it as a character. So that's why I've got this into Notepad. And then you will have something I haven't mentioned. If you haven't already, you will have to log on to HMRC to say I'm going to be doing an online submission. I can't explain to you how that's going to work because I can't do it from our side, but they will give you a user ID and they will give you a password. We've got some sample ones here, as I say, so that we can actually go through this process with you. And also part of that, I will just have to make sure that my VAT number, my VAT registration number, is valid for that username and password. So these three fields, you will be getting the information from HMRC in some format. Okay, and of course, the VAT return, VAT registration number, will be the number that is part of the company information within NAV. And again, this process will actually give you the chance to check that that is correct. So I'll just have that minimized for the moment. So first thing we've got to do is go into our service connections page. And I go to the navigate and the setup, and you'll notice at the moment it is disabled, i.e. I haven't gone through that process as yet. So I'll pop into setup again. We did look at this earlier. I'll just bring up my notepad because what I have to do is, as I mentioned, I have to actually supply the user or the client ID, I beg your pardon, it's called, and then the password or the client secret. Do hope this works this time. Sometimes it does play up for us a bit. When we click out of that, nothing magical happens because as the message at the top says that you must get this thing called this authorization code. So this is when HMRC come back to Navision and say that Microsoft can be, or is going to act as the agent between you and HMRC. So you click on the request authorization code. We don't have to do any encryption, so we can just say no at that point. Okay, and I have got an error, and I'll show you because it's on my other screen. If I can just get this over to you. It's saying invalid request, error description, or client is invalid. So basically, perhaps I haven't copy and pasted correctly, but you'll notice this is going through to HMRC to this test environment for me. So I'll just get rid of that. Wrong client ID, Pauline, for goodness sake. Too excited, that's my trouble. Oops. Copy. Okay. Now we should be able to get in. Hurrah. Oh, shows you if you do it wrong, doesn't it? I'm good at doing that, aren't I? Anyway, okay, so this is saying authority to act with HMRC on your behalf. So this is HMR saying, yeah, okay, I'm good to go. So we do our continue, and it is at this point, I'm going to go for that last one, just in case using those others might have caused a problem. So this will be your user ID as you have received from HMRC with your unique password. And then I'm going to sign in. And then it asks me, are you sure? Basically, it's almost like a Navision thing. Do you want to actually grant the authority for Microsoft to act on your behalf? So it then will come back and it gives you this authorization code here. So you can just click on the copy field and I can come back into NAV, and it's in here that I now need to paste that authorization code. Once I have done that, all I did there was I just tabbed out of that field. It says authorization was successful. Do you want to open the company information setup to verify the VAT registration number? So I would always say yes, just to make sure that you have set Navision up correctly. So in this case, because of course we're doing this test thing, I've got my registration number here for this particular test user ID. So I would put this in because Navision, when it does the upload, in conjunction with the Microsoft agent, will be checking that that is the correct registration number. So we have actually now created our setup in terms of we've granted Microsoft to act on our behalf. So the next thing we need to do is we need to get these things sorted out in terms of being able to download our VAT periods. So if you remember, it was VAT return periods. So now I should be able to go to our get VAT return periods here. If I hadn't done that setup on the service connections, it would just give you an error to say that it has got the relevant details to do that. Now, because this is a test environment, it doesn't actually matter what I put in here. We're just going to get a VAT period back with which we're going to work in. So I know that I'm actually working within 2017. So I'm just going to do 2017 here and just show you at the moment to here. And then I'm just going to say OK. So it's saying it's retrieving VAT return periods, 2 records. So it, as I mentioned earlier, it brings you the one that you did previously that you have now closed. You've done that return, and then the next one that you're going to run for this VAT quarter. So as I say, because this is test environment, we're actually working between April and June just on this one. Okay, so we've got that, so that's absolutely lovely. So what is our process in terms of the VAT return itself? So from here, in fact, I will just come back to our home screen and our VAT statement. So as normal, we'll be running our VAT statement. So I'll do a preview. The period that I'm doing is 0417. Okay, as usual, nothing else has changed here. We still use the include just the VAT, just the open VAT entries, and the VAT entries, anything that hasn't been closed in previous VAT reconciliation, so before and within period. So I will try my best now to get this in a format so that we can do our reconciliation. It's always a bit tricksy, but we'll have a go. So I've got that there, and I'll recall that in a moment. The other part of our standard NAV VAT reconciliation is our calc and post VAT settlement. As usual, we will always leave the start date empty because we're bringing or including any entries that might have been posted into a previous period. Our ending date in this case is the 30th of the 6th. I put in just an arbitrary document number and I've entered my settlement account. As normal, as I always suggest in my training, I won't be doing the show VAT entries because I just want a summary so that I can reconcile it easier. And certainly I'm not going to be doing my post because that's only when I'm happy. So I'll do a preview on that. Maybe just make that slightly larger. My preview. Okay, so as per normal, we're always checking that total here. So you'll notice that that actually is as a negative figure, but because we've put the reverse print with reverse sign, it's actually showing it as a positive here. And this is totally because the difference between our sales and our purchases is the difference that comes here, and HMRC knows whether it's repayable or receivable. So again, when you're doing your VAT return, normal way, manual way, you will check all your base and your VAT amounts on your statement. Okay, I'm not going to go through that side because I'm sure you're happy with that. So once we're happy, I can actually close that one. I'm still going to keep that one open here. And now I can go to my, so I've reconciled it, I've done any checks with GL, and I'm happy that my VAT statement is correct. So now we can go back to our VAT return periods. And I can go to that line and I can say create VAT return in my button. So you'll notice when you're on a closed entry, that button isn't available because if a return is closed, then you can't create a VAT return again from it. So open and create my VAT return. It says it's created it. Do I want to open it? If I say no, so just in case you hit the wrong key and I say no, I don't want to open it, what I can then just do is go to the navigate ribbon and open the return from there. So it isn't a problem if you haven't opened it on that dialog box. So within our return itself, it's blank at the moment because we haven't asked NAV to populate it. You'll notice that the General Fast tab is auto-populated, and this has come from the VAT return periods line that we have generated our VAT return from. We've got report lines here that are empty, and that is because we need to ask Navision to suggest those lines. So we just do suggest, and again, you're in control in terms of what you're suggesting. So just like we do on our statement, it is open entries, before and within period, the VAT statement template, and then the VAT statement itself. So I'm using the UK one. Again, it just shows you what the details are in terms of the VAT period, and then say OK. So what we have here is the return based on those box numbers that we had on our VAT statement, that we will now, when we do our submission, we will actually be sending through to HMRC. So if I can get these side by side, which may or may not be possible, I would do my best. No, that's not the one. Let's come back here. It's always tricksy to try to do it all on one screen. Okay. So I seem to have lost. Oh, it's going to be impossible actually. I can't do it on the one I was hoping I could. So in essence, what we're going to be tying up is that our net VAT payable or receivable figures are the same as our VAT statement, and indeed of course they should be, but we always do a double check, don't we? And that the VAT due on sales and on purchases are exactly the same. Once we are happy that we are ready to send, and of course this can stay as a document and you can resuggest the lines if you need to, if you've decided now, oh actually that isn't right, I need to make some changes or whatever, adjustments, then of course you can just resuggest the lines again as many times as you wish. Once you are happy, you'll notice there is submit and reopen here, but you don't get access to those until you have done your release. So once you release, you then cannot change your VAT return unless you reopen it, but you can only reopen it if you haven't actually submitted the return yet. So you could mark it like this just to make sure that nobody could go in and inadvertently change anything, but still wait until it's actual time to do your submission. Then at that time you can then just come in and do submit, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed again that this is going to work. And it says when you submit this VAT information you are making a legal declaration. Yes, okay, yes please, I do want to continue. And it says that report has been successfully submitted. So you can see here that the status has been changed to accepted, and there are several status there. So you've got open, which obviously we were in when we created the VAT return, released when I released it, submitted, that I've done the submission but it's been submitted and it's now come back to our test environment saying that it has been accepted. Unfortunately, I can't take you through the next stages because we haven't been able to test that out, but you can close or you can have a status of where HMRC have rejected or cancelled. As I say, I can't actually show you those processes at the moment. Just one point I've noticed here, that you have actually got your calculate and calc and post VAT settlement link here rather than running it from the VAT statement itself. As I showed you, it takes you to exactly the same place, so you can use that there. So we have now actually gone through that whole submission process. So if I say OK to this, and you'll notice that we've got that the VAT return status is accepted, because it's a test environment, it's not actually moving that on here. Again, it's just because we don't get full functionality as far as HMRC is in this development environment. Okay, so if we can go back to the card and we can have a look at it, but as you can see now, because it has been submitted and accepted, we don't have the ability to go back in and reopen and resubmit. Okay, so that's the full extent of the return itself. However, there are a couple of items that I didn't mention in my agenda that I would actually just like to go through with you to show you. Again, I can only show you the pages really, it's not very exciting, but we have the VAT, she says trying to think what it's called, there we go, VAT liabilities. And VAT payments are two additional new pages that we have with Making Tax Digital. And again, I'm not 100% sure on how this is going to work. However, you get liabilities, and you'll put in again your period dates here, and I'm just working to this because we don't get anything back because we haven't actually made any submissions. So what this screen I believe will be showing you is that what you have already submitted to HMRC, but that you haven't paid yet. Hence these columns, the dates of the submission, what the type is, the original amount, and the outstanding amount, i.e. have you paid that over to HMRC? So that will be listed here. As I say, at the moment, we can't do that because, of course, this is a test environment. So VAT liabilities say what you are liable for and what you haven't paid, whereas the VAT payments gives you another view of that. And again, you'll just do the get payments and pop in the dates. And again, we're going to get that error because we can't download that, but it's going to say what dates they have received payments is the way I'm expecting that to work. But as we haven't actually started yet, we could have some additional feedback from HMRC. Just rest assured, if we do, then we will make sure that the user notes that are sent out are updated and be able to send you through those updated notes as and when they become available. So as you can see, it isn't a particularly difficult process now, just changes to our VAT statement in terms of what we have on our fields. We're still going to do our preview of VAT statement and run our calc and post and do that reconciliation between the two and any other GL reconciliations that you would do normally or as you're doing at the moment. We've seen how we can create our VAT return, which we will reconcile against our statement. And again, if you remember, that's done from our VAT return periods, and then how we can do that return online, and that VAT return will be submitted through to HMRC, and hopefully you will be very happy, and HMRC, at the end of that process. So hopefully I've given you a good insight as to where we are going, or where HMRC are going on this Making Tax Digital. I'll hand over now to Adam so he can just finish the session. So just thanks from me, and see you on the next one.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Pauline. I hope you all found that useful. So as mentioned, I'm assuming that many of you will have a lot of questions. So please do give me a call or drop me an email, and I'll be happy to help you out. Those are my details on the screen now. Don't forget, if you'd like to see more, head over to the website where we're going to have a bunch of other videos looking at different aspects of NAV and 4PS. And as I said, we've been recording this webinar, so if you've missed anything or want to take a look over something again, I'm hoping to have that up on the website in the next couple of days. So I'll email you a link once that's all sorted out. So once again, thank you for being with us this morning. Have a great day, and we'll see you very soon. Cheers. Thank you.